Hey guys, Zomb Phox here, and today it is time for the 500 subscriber Q&A. I talked about doing this a while ago, and well, today's the day we're doing it. Now, first and foremost, thank you again for 500 subscribers. I talked about it in the beginning of the year, state of the channel 2024, that my lofty goal was 500 by the season starting. We are at 600. We have completely blown away that goal. In fact, we're on pace to hit 700 before the season starts, which is unbelievable. Again, I want to thank all of you who have been here, whether it's been since the beginning, back, before the USFL season even started in 2022, or those of you who have just joined recently since the UFL's announcement. Thank you all for your support. I know, some videos some people agree, disagree with. Brahmas fans, a lot of you are hoping that the Brahmas end up doing good just so it goes back and, makes me get wrong or being proved wrong is the best way to put it. Other people agree with almost everything I've said. So, again, whether you agree or disagree, you like or dislike some of the stuff I make, for all of you who have been here throughout the journey, thank you. So we are doing the 500 subscriber Q&A, but I have teased about an announcement regarding the 1,000 subscriber giveaway, and I have a new announcement as well. So, number one, give me one quick second. So, for those of you who were there during that, I announced that we will be doing a 1,000 subscriber giveaway when we hit it, and it's going to be 3 boxes of 2023 USFL. You get one numbered card and then one other numbered or auto, though, as you've seen, if you saw my one of my last unboxings, you could actually get multiple. So, yes, giving away 3 of these boxes. But since we hit 500 before the season started, and in fact 600, like I teased as well, the earlier we hit the goals, the more I'll add. I have also added, and this was teased in a community post last week, 2 boxes of 2019 Topps AAF, Alliance of American Football. It's honestly, I think, overall the best spring football set we've ever had, better than the XFL one, because a lot of these key guys in the league now are actually rookies in this set. Now, you have an actual NFL rookie in Younghoe Kutachase, but you've got guys like Chris Odom, Frank Ginda, as well as others. Brandon Silvers has a rookie in there, Luis Perez, and a few other guys as well. It's a really fun set to open, and I've honestly kind of gone overboard. I've actually gotten a couple more in, and naturally I've got 2 for the giveaway. So we're now up to 5 items for the giveaway. It's going to be the first and second place are going to get both boxes, and then third is going to get 1 box. And naturally, I'll probably try and add 1 or 2 other cool things to it while we, get there to 1,000 subscribers. And the other announcement is I now have access to channel memberships, so channel memberships are now available. Now, this is in the very early stages of how I'm going to do it, so I only have 1 tier, and that's the community friend tier, which is $2.99 per month, where if you decide to join that, you will get access to a channel a channel badge. Currently, I'm just using the default one. I'm trying to think about what I want to do with the special ones. And then you will get access to 4 emojis. They are UFL teams in the Brahmas, Stallions, Panthers, and Battlehawks, since a lot of you guys are fans of those teams, or it's the Stallions. And I can't add the other ones. You have to actually have a certain amount of community members to have more than 4, which I don't like, but it is what it is. And you will also be given a special shout out at the end of the first video made after you become a member. And after every video at the end, your name, either your name or channel name, will be on screen as well. So if you want to support the channel, as I've kind of alluded to, I did spend some money on stuff. I got a new PC, which is almost exclusively for content, as well as a mic. The webcam, I didn't actually pay for that one, so not a big deal. But the microphone and the PC both took some out, and actually I am planning to go to the championship game, which is supposed to be in St. Louis, which is going to suck financially. So if you want to become a member to support the channel or help me out, that'd be really nice, and I thank you all for that if whoever wants to do it. But again, it is your choice. If you want to, I only have 1 that's $2.99. I am planning to add more tiers and add other stuff like an exclusive video or other stuff. It's just really new to it, so I'm just doing a basic one for now. But without further ado, let's get right into the Q&A, with the first question being kind of a duo, and that is a couple people asking about team record predictions. The answer to this is yes, I will be. Now, I don't know exactly when I'll be doing it. It'll probably be within 2 weeks before the season starts. But I am going to be doing what I basically did last year, which I'm probably going to do what records each team will get based on their conferences, and then the overall postseason predictions. So I will be doing technically 2 of them. I'll be making the overall just full predictions in a couple weeks, where I predict who's going to make the playoffs and make, the the championship game, and then I'll do one once we have the postseason that's just the postseason. So it's just like I did last year and the year before that, where I did have it. As I know, last year, a couple of the teams I predicted went exactly as planned and a couple didn't. But yeah, I will be doing a prediction just in a couple weeks. I want to wait till we get further along training camp, see if there's any massive injuries. Hopefully there aren't. But if there are, if there's any massive surprising signings, as we've recently seen like Sal Cannella re-sign out of nowhere, Kiki Cootie signed somewhere, I don't remember where off the top of my head. So there's a lot of stuff that can keep happening, so I'm not doing it yet, but I will be. Now the next question, if the Georgia Bulldogs played the championship Stallions, what do you think the score would be? I replied that I think it was 27-17 is what I replied in this one. The bottom line is the USFL or UFL teams are filled with a lot of guys who are just under the NFL threshold. Now, the one thing to note is that a lot of college teams at the end of the day would get pwned by a UFL team. That's just true. Because a lot of the 130 FBS teams produce a couple NFL guys who maybe one of them becomes a great player. Now, in terms of the ranked teams, I kind of agree with the census. I think that a UFL team like the Stallions, the championship Stallions, would be a ranked team in college football. But I don't think they'd be a top 5 or maybe even top 10 team. Because, for instance, like the Bulldogs have a bunch of guys that are going to become NFL stars. Just taking the Bulldogs from a couple of years ago, you had Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, as well as a bunch of other guys that I'm just totally blanking on. Brock Bowers on offense. I mean, you're talking about teams that have a lot of high-end talent that will go on to become not just Pro Bowlers, but all pro-level talents in the NFL. Whereas, if you look at both the UFL or the USFL and XFL, in terms of guys that went on to the NFL, you've got Cavante Turpin, who became an All-Pro from the Players Association at returner, and you got Aubrey as an NFL All-Pro kicker. In terms of skill position guys from the modern, so not 2020 XFL, from just the last 2 years, you really don't have anyone that became an outstanding quarterback in the league. You've got guys that made it and appeared a little bit. So overall, I think that because these guys are mostly in their primes, whereas a lot of college guys are naturally 20 to 23 years old, I think that overall the build of the players naturally benefits the UFL teams, or the Stallions in this case. So I think they would be able to beat a lower ranked team like, Duke when Leonard got hurt. I think they would be able to beat that team. But I think against a Bama this past season, against a Georgia, I don't think they'd win. I think it wouldn't be necessarily a blowout, but it would be a pretty easy win. Just kind of the 2 XFL playoff games the Renegades were in, where on paper they technically weren't blowouts. They were just never close. That's how I would say. Now we go to the one question. Are you on Twitter, X? Love X. What a name. So, this is one I'm going to ask you guys. If you want me to get on Twitter, or X, put it down in the comments below. Either just say Twitter, X, or yes, something like that. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but at the same time, I'm not against going on it. If multiple of you guys do want me on there, whether it is to, promote my content and help me out, or just, see extra stuff, is naturally during games and all that, I could be live tweeting my thoughts on it, which it's a lot easier to do on X than Instagram, admittedly, which is what I am on. So if you do want me to get on Twitter, just put it down in the comments that you want me to do it, and if 5 of you say you want it, I'll probably end up doing it. So if you want it, just put it down in the comments that you do want me on Twitter. Just say Twitter or X in the comments. For the Q&A, I have a quote, do you agree with me that the UFL is better than the NFL? Now, naturally, he is not talking about talent, but he is talking about, do you overall like the league more than the NFL? And the answer to that is actually pretty hard. The way I look at it is this. Since the USFL's 2022 rebirth, my favorite game I have ever seen was the championship game between the Stars and the Stallions. Whether that be college football, NFL, or spring football. That's the best. And I would argue the second and third best games are the opening game between the Stallions and Generals in 22, or the playoff game between the Maulers and Panthers. In terms of the quality of the game, I think that a lot of people overrate the NFL versus the UFL. Or I'm just going to say UFL for spring football. Because at the end of the day, even though if the technical passing and receptions and the player talent is worse, when you look at the highest of high ceiling talent in spring football versus the lowest end, it's a lot smaller than comparing, the best starting quarterback in the NFL to the worst. Essentially put it like this. Compare Case Cookis to Reed Sinnett. Is Case Cookus a much better QB? Yes. But is the gap nearly as bad as, let's say, Kenny Pickett versus Pat Mahomes? No, that's a massive gap. So when you only have 8 teams and the talent pool is so much smaller, the games actually, in my opinion, are usually better than NFL games because of that. Because the talent difference is much smaller. I do think the NFL is still the best league in terms of following it. The amount of press it gets, the amount of hot takes that you see, the amount of shows that are on it, the overall league and elsewhere is still better, and I would prefer it. But in terms of watching games, I'd actually say I do prefer watching spring football games. I actually would. Especially looking at this past season when I looked back at all the XFL games I watched, the USFL games I watched, the college football games I watched, and the NFL games I watched. I'm going to be honest, it's hard for me to say that I preferred watching the NFL over the USFL this past season. I really don't think I can. There was a lot of NFL games I watched which I just didn't care about or were just kind of boring. Whereas a lot of, even the worst UFL games, you're going to have those in the NFL as well, whereas the best UFL games, which were more common, were much better. Even the Super Bowl this past year, which I'll get to a bit more later, it was objectively a great game, but at the same time, because it's two teams that are just so unlikable in the fact that it's the Dynasty versus one of the most annoying fan bases in the league in the Niners, I really didn't care too much. I liked the game, but am I going to say that if I had to go rewatch it over the USFL 2022 championship, would I? No, I'd go watch the championship game from the USFL 2022. So I actually say that watching games, I do prefer the UFL. The league as a whole, the coverage as a whole, everything, stats and all that, I would say the NFL is better. But watching the game, I would watch a UFL game over an NFL game almost any time. You'd have to give me a damn good matchup in the NFL for me to say I'd rather watch an NFL game. Now, yes, that may be because I am a Panthers fan, and basically every Panthers game I watch is awful, which is true. But even the non-Panthers games, it's like, oh no, the Cowboys, choked in the playoffs. I'm so shocked. It's almost like they do that every year. So that's just my thoughts on it. If you could create a new UFL team, what city would it be based in, and what would you name the team? Now, talked with him in the replies. I actually came up with 2 of them. One of them is totally selfish, but the first one is, let me just say this. I'm not going to do the cop-out answer and say like San Diego, Oakland, New Orleans Breakers. I'm not going to do the cop-out answers. Now, the one that I've seen a lot of people suggest that I actually do like is Albuquerque, New Mexico. Because even though it's in, a more southern area, so potential heat issues, the bottom line is it is a city that has never really been touched in massive pro leagues. And you could say that's a bad omen, but you could also say it's just an untapped market. I actually think putting a team there would be a really solid idea. I believe it's University Stadium. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think that's what it's called. It's like a 40,000 seat stadium. That would be a solid place for a team to play. And in terms of the name, I'd say go with one of the state animals. I don't know fully how the trademark works because I know there were supposedly issues with the Washington Commanders trying to be the Red Wolves that people said, but I'm pretty sure as long as you're a different city, you can do it. So you could do like your state animal, the Black Bears, the Albuquerque Black Bears. Or I think it's like the Cutthroat Trout, which I think would be funny, but also kind of cool. The Albuquerque Cutthroat Trout. Essentially do something like with your state, but I think the Black Bears would actually be a cool one. You could, have really cool, just slick, fully black unis, which, yes, if you play outdoors in the summer, wearing black is a massive detriment, but it would be really cool, you gotta admit. So I actually do think that would be a good one. And then the other team I would do is fully just so I could have a team, and that would be the Raleigh Red Wolves in Carter Finley Stadium in Raleigh, North Carolina. The fact is that as someone who is in North Carolina, who's lived here all my life, we really don't have our own true professional team in a sense that people care about. Look, if you're from North Carolina, you don't really view Charlotte as a North Carolina city. You basically view it as a Carolina city since it's basically in South Carolina. So the Charlotte Hornets, we don't really say them as a North Carolina team. Same with the Panthers. They're the Carolina Panthers. Even the Hurricanes, which should be a North Carolina team since they're based in Raleigh, are called the Carolina Hurricanes. So I'd like to see a team like the Raleigh Red Wolves. It's a name that makes sense. It's, easy to say, and it goes with where they'd be playing at Carter Finley Stadium where the NC State Wolfpack play. Could you be alienating some UNC, Duke, and all those kind of fans? Sure. But at the end of the day, would it be really cool to have a team there? Yes. It is an untapped market in the sense that it's in the center of North Carolina. You're basically within a couple hours from like the beach, a couple hours from Virginia, a couple hours from South Carolina. It's a very centralized location in Raleigh. So doing it and having a team there would be really cool. Is that me just wanting a team that I can get season tickets for and actually go to every single game? Yes. But do I think it also is a good idea? Yes. I think a team in either Virginia or North Carolina is something that needs to happen at some point. It's a couple markets that the fans do love their teams when they're not terrible, like the Panthers. I mean, the Hurricanes, whenever they're good, those games are crazy to go to. That's what I'd put there. Was it a mistake for the UFL to go to FS1 instead of FX, which had decent ratings? So the first thing is that, naturally, technically, there's only like a game or two on it, but it still is a big deal. And I'm going to be honest, the more I thought about this, I actually think it would be better for FX. Look, FS1, the main reason about the games on there is so that FS1 has stuff for the channel. It is very lackluster in content, and it did rely a lot on USFL games on it. If I'm not mistaken about how stuff works, if the game is on Fox, they can put it on FS1. It's kind of like how, the Peacock games, whether it was on NBC or USA, could both be on Peacock, that kind of deal. So I'm pretty sure the Fox games can go onto FS1, so that really don't need it. And the reason I say FX is even though it is hilarious to think that you could be watching Spider-Man No Way Home and then all of a sudden, boom, football game, which is crazy, I think that it is better. It did get decent ratings. It was better than FS1 if I'm not mistaken. And the fact is you can get more outsiders into the league. People will be watching a movie or a show on FX and then a football game come on. They're not necessarily, massive football fans, but now there's a game that they can watch. It's a good lead-in a sense of getting new fans. And since it already has shown that objectively it is basically just as good, if not better, than FS1, I actually do agree with Mike. I think that this is a really, not a really poor decision, because again, there's only one or two games on it, but I think that FX is a better place for a single game or two to be, because you can get those new fans into it. And it's not like you have that many games on FS1 at all, so why not put on FX? I do think FX would have been better. If the season gets good ratings and stuff, what teams are they adding next season? Also, should they get a deal with CBS in the future? They get stuff like SNF for the UFL, but on CBS. If the UFL is very successful in year one, they bring back New Jersey or the Breakers. So the thing is, the Breakers they're going to probably come back in 26. I think it's a common sentiment that as soon as the Shrine is done renovating, they're probably going to be back. Despite never playing in New Orleans, they legitimately had one of the biggest online fan bases across either league in terms of fans just always talking about them. And people I've seen are very diehard Breakers fans. So I think they're all but a given to come back once the Shrine is done. So will they be back next year? Severely doubt it. Unless they decide to play a year at Tulane, I doubt it. The Generals, I've said it before, I just don't see them coming back in a couple years. I think it's going to be down the road they return. It's just putting a team in New York or New Jersey at this point. It's hard to see with how they're trying to save money. They might, which they could, but I feel like we're sooner going to see a team return in Florida, or a team return, kind of in the Central, than we the Maulers or the Stars, than we are to see a team return in New Jersey. Now, in terms of what teams I do think could come back next season, if the rumors of two teams returning next season are true, not the rumors, it's just what people speculate because of the deal they had with the government. As I've said before, I think the Guardians have a solid shot at returning because they could return in New York instead of the Generals, or they could return in Florida. And I think that the Maulers have a good shot. The Maulers are the Stars. I wouldn't be shocked if both come back. Look, I know some people say it'd be really confusing. I just wouldn't be shocked if both of them return. They put them right in the USFL conference, move Houston back to the XFL conference. I would not be shocked at that, honestly. So, that would be my take. I'd say that the Guardians, Maulers, and Stars are probably the top three teams I see returning next season. No, I don't think the Dragons come back, even though they have a great fan base. You kind of go against the whole purpose of cutting down to 8 teams if you bring in a team that's completely in the Northwest in your first year. That's my take on it. Will the Stallions get stopped this year? Which two teams go to the first Merge UFL Championship game? I'm going to save that, but I will say that in my prediction video, again, barring any massive injuries, I do have the Stallions missing the championship game. I think this is the year they finally do get stopped. I'm not going to say who, I don't want to spoil that one, but I do think they get stopped. And in terms of who makes it to the UFL championship game, again, I don't want to spoil it, but I mean, if you've listened to how I've talked in a lot of these videos, you can probably guess which two teams I'm going to have in the championship game if it's not the Stallions. But I will say that I don't have the Stallions making it to the championship game, barring any colossal injuries. So I will leave it at that. who do you have winning the Super Bowl? This was before the Super Bowl. I put in the reply, so this isn't me, being that guy, trying to, act like I'm smart. In the reply, I said I had the Chiefs winning it. Look, ever since the matchup was first announced that it was the Chiefs versus the Niners, I looked at it the very simple way. Would I rather have Pat Mahomes or Brock Purdy? Mahomes. Would I rather have Kelsey, Travis Kelsey, or George Kittle? Travis Kelsey. Would I rather have Andy Reid or Shanahan? Come on, I'd rather have Andy Reid. It wasn't even close for me. It just, from the beginning, I always looked at it and said, this is easy. It's going to be the Chiefs who win it. I never was super high in the Niners. I always thought they were a really solid team this year. A great team. But it was just, I always knew that this team would end up failing. I'm a firm believer that until you prove something, I'm not going to go against it, which is why me not having the Stallions win is hard for me to say, but I do fully believe in it. Until Shanahan wins the Super Bowl, he's never going to win one in my eyes. It doesn't matter how good a team you give him. The fact is almost every single loss he has had in a big game can be pinned on him. The Atlanta pinned on him not running the ball and instead passing in field goal range for literally this many reasons. 0. Then you have the Super Bowl with Jimmy G. They allowed, they were up 10, then got beat by double digits in the fourth quarter. Don't even say anything. That says it all. And there was that championship game they blew against the Rams. And then the one this year, which wasn't fully on him, but there was times where he was throwing the ball a lot more than he should. And that's been his biggest flaw, is he tries to be way too aggressive for no reason. You have the best running back in football. Your quarterback is not top 5. I know that might be a hot take. Brock Purdy's not top 5. Stop acting like he's a top 5 quarterback trying to prove he is. You want him to become a legit guy in that conversation, win the Super Bowl. But win it by actually trying, not by trying to force him down everybody's throats as a great quarterback. Because guess what? That's kind of what cost you the game. It wasn't because he was bad. It's because you didn't use McCaffrey, which you should have used. Now, did the team you want make it? No. I wanted the Joe Flacco story to come true or the CJ Stroud train. Both lost. I am a Panthers fan. I knew from the beginning of the season they weren't going to do it ever since they drafted Bryce, because despite everyone saying everyone liked Bryce, I have said since the beginning of draft stuff to people I know, I did not want Bryce. I wanted CJ. I watched enough to say that Bryce is not better than CJ. Yet we drafted Bryce for no reason, fired our coach who wanted CJ, who ended up being proven right that CJ was better because despite the arguments, no, the Texans are not that much better than the Panthers on paper. They are better, but everyone's acting like the Panthers are so much worse. No, they're not. Next one. As a Showboats fan, I think that this team has a limited potential to dominate spring football. They got the star players at all the right positions. They loaded up on their offense. Their defense looks great. And DeFilippo is a massive upgrade from Todd Haley. But only if things click very early in the season do I think they actually have a chance for an 8-win type of season. Do you think the Showboats have any chance of upsetting the Stallions for a conference title? I don't think this team needs 8 wins. Legitimately, this team needs 6. If they get 6 wins, I feel they make the playoffs and they can probably get to the championship game. The way I look at it is they have 3 weeks where I'm not going to lower them that much in the power rankings. I'm just saying that right now. There's 3 weeks where barring they get absolutely shellacked where they get it together. They get DeFilippo, Cookus, and Victor on the same page. Because that's really what it is. Your new head coach, your new running back, your new quarterback need to get on the same page. The rest of the team already knows a lot about how they do stuff with each other. It's just a matter of can you get those 3 guys to gel together. Sage Surratt to a lesser extent as well. On paper, the starters of this team, at least offensively, are arguably the best in the league. You have who I think is the best quarterback in the league. You have who I would say is probably the 3rd or 4th best running back in the league in Darius Victor. Maybe 2nd, but the more I look at it, probably 3rd. You have, I think, the best tight end in Sage Surratt. That's a hot take, I know, but I stand by it. Maybe that's because one of my takes to age like wine was me saying how great Sage Surratt was going to be. And even though it took a year, I just like a tight end that's more of a, short yardage reception guy rather than a Jay Sternberger, insane yak downfield type of guy. The only issue is that the wide receiving core does not have a true number 1. It's still Derek Dillon and Vinny Papale, who are both really solid number 2s, but are they better than Coleman? No, they're not. But are they better than Coleman and any second receiver in the Stars? Probably. So, I think they have a chance to upset the Stallions. Hint, hint to who I have making it to the championship game, believe it or not. I am very high in the Showboats. I'm very high in basically all their players, and that's why I've always been high in Sage. I've always been high in Victor. I've always been high in DiFilippo. I was pretty high in him initially. I'm pretty sure I had him pretty high in the coaches ranking in the USFL this past year, heading into the season. And then I've been very high on Surratt. So those 4 key players / coaches I've been very high on. Their defense is the only thing that kind of concerns me because I look at it and say it's a good unit, but not an awesome unit. But I also am very high on their kicker. So I think that a lot of this team, I actually like a lot of this team because that's just the kind of guys I like. I do think they have a good shot at winning the championship. I don't think they're going to get 8 wins, and I don't think they need 8 wins. I think they only need 6 because I look at the Panthers and the Roughnecks, and I say as long as you beat those teams 2-0, so you get 4 wins against them, it doesn't matter. Realistically, I could see this team going 2-0 against the Panthers, Roughnecks, beat the Brahmas, and then beat the Battlehawks or Renegades, lose both to the Stallions, and then lose to the Defenders, and then the other of the Battlehawks, Renegades. 6-4, you make the playoffs. You have a good shot at winning the title. That's my take. Question for the Q&A. How plausible really is it for the UFL to transition into a G League for the NFL? It's already like the G League in the way of lower class players being able to showcase their skills, but there is no way for NFL practice squatters, at least those that sign future deals, so they are on the roster over the spring and summer, or guys deep on depth charts to play and display what they got without leaving their team. But the only issue is that each NFL team had a UFL team, their practice squad, and low-tier guys played. That would be 32 teams and easily 1,400 players, which isn't feasible. Maybe each UFL team could pair with a couple of NFL teams. But would the NFL partner with the UFL in the first place anyway? I don't know. Obviously, you don't have to include all this. But just the original question. I think that the best way to put it is that there's a reason why you can't really do it. With the NFL especially, this isn't like the NBA where, despite what modern players will try and act like about how they can't play 82 games because of load managing or, I kind of hurt my pinky this morning. Playing a 17-game NFL season and then playing like a 10-game UFL season, that's a lot of wear and tear in your body. The fact is that the reason I don't see practice squad guys really fully going it, practice squad guys, maybe. I think that there could be some sort of deal in the future where the NFL practice squad guys are allowed to sign to UFL teams to go play, but that there is no legitimate partnership in a team sense. I think the best way would be an overall league partnership, not a team-by-team way. Because it is true what you said. You cannot have 32, or even really, you can't have 32 teams. Is 16 possible? Sure. I think what's best is just making something where practice squad guys could go to the UFL. Because the thing is, practice squad guys make a lot of money compared to UFL players. But if they have the option to go play as well and then go back to being a practice squad guy, they could. Now, yes, you do risk injury by going to the UFL and playing games, but you already risk injury in practice squad since we've seen many, many, many times guys tear their Achilles, tear their ACL, break an arm or something in practice squads or in training camp. So, it's not like you're fully risking your body. You already are in training camp. So, I actually think that this should be a potential option. The way I look at it is if I have a guy in my practice squad who decides to go to the UFL and play, he's risking his body, he's risking his potential future career to give us more tape and show what he can do. That says a lot about a player's mentality and just how crazy they are. It's a big reason why a lot of people like AJ McCarron. He did not have to go back to the UFL. He never even had to. He could have always just stayed in the NFL, but he wants to play. That shows the type of mentality he has. That's something that, is one of those, intangibles that shows something. I think that'd be the best way. A league agreement that practice squad players have the option to sign to the UFL, knowing and understanding that if they get hurt, they're going to get released probably. I think that's the best way to do it because overall the way it is now is honestly pretty solid. The quote-unquote G League is basically college football, except, it's different because, that's the argument I've heard people use, let me rephrase that, which isn't true because a G League is meant for guys to develop in a sense, whereas college football is just like college basketball. You go there, then you get drafted, and then the G League is sometimes for when guys have to kind of rebound their career. Not always, but sometimes. So I think that would be the best way to do it. That's just my opinion on it. I think that there should be an agreement between them, but not like a full agreement, just a kind of, you can go sign there and do stuff there. That's my thoughts on it. Another question, which 2 teams? Yeah, this just came out later, so I'm putting it back. Again, I think that if there were 2 teams to come back, I would say it's either the Maulers or Stars and the Guardians, or it's the Maulers and Stars. That's what I would say. Then the last question is, now that rosters are selling in, I'd love to know your view on the quality of talent in the UFL this coming year versus, say, the CFL. In your opinion, it won't change the league, my enjoyment, blah, all that. The thing, the thing I would say about this is I don't watch the CFL a ton. I've watched a couple games, and from what I understand, it's a lot of Canadian players that went to Canadian colleges, those type of guys. So guys who, in theory, either didn't want to leave home or weren't necessarily good enough for the highest of high-tier American teams. But I will say this. I think the best way to view this is, how would the Stars, the original Philly Stars, have done in the NFL? The consensus is that they would be a middle-of-the-pack team. They wouldn't be a championship contender, but they wouldn't be a bottom feeder. That's how I kind of view if you put the Stallions in the CFL. I would assume that at the end of the day, they have a lot of talent that can be in the NFL, just like CFL players could be in the NFL. But I think the CFL is a much more established league. A lot more players that come from Canada are going to be in there, the higher tier players from there. So I think that naturally, not knowing fully a ton about the CFL, I would assume that a team like the Stallions would go in there and be a competitive team, but not a top tier team. That'd be my just initial thoughts on it. Judging by that, CFL players can be paid a pretty decent amount of money. The fact that the CFL has been around a long time, has a bunch of Canadian people who go there, or Canadian, born residents that go and play in it. And the fact that we've seen guys like Chad Kelly, for instance, or even MBT went back to the CFL. And looking at MBT from how a lot of people viewed him in the CFL versus how good he was in the USFL, I think kind of shows that. That'd be my take. I think that a top-tier team would be competitive, a mid-tier team would be a lower-tier team, and a bad team would be just straight-up awful. So that'll do it for my 500 subscriber Q&A. Thank you for all those who participated in it. Again, remember the giveaway has added 2 Topps AAF blaster boxes, as well as channel memberships now being active. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you aren't already, or if you haven't already, as we're on the road to 700 subscribers all of a sudden. And be on the lookout for any videos that come out soon. I'm going to do another Power Rankings video before the season starts, probably the week of the season starting. Then we still have to do the prediction video and anything else that comes up. And as always, have a great night.